Hi, it's Joy from Crochet Road. Today I'm going to show you how to crochet this puff flower heart, which is a very quick little make. It takes me less than 10 minutes each. They look cute on the front and on the back. So let's get started. The yarn that I've used is a blown yarn that is by Concept by Katia, cotton merino. It's a 70% cotton and 30% wool yarn that is 50 grams for 105 meters. So that's a heavyweight 8 ply or DK. When you're working it up, it's a bit closer to a worsted weight or a 10 ply. The structure of this yarn is a cotton core that has been woven, and the merino has been blown into that core. So makes it something that actually has a fair bit of air inside of it. So when you press on the strand, you can squish that down quite narrow, which helps when you're making multiple puff stitches into a small space and you want to pull that magic ring nice and tight to close it up. You can use any yarn you like though, just give it a go and see how it works. I'm also using my trusty Clover Amour 4mm or G hook with this yarn, which is a little small for this yarn, but because I want the finished item to have some structure, I want to keep that hook on the small side. So begin with a magic ring. I have a tutorial on YouTube for how I like to make my magic rings, and I will link to that below. And then chain 1, which doesn't count as a stitch. Now you're going to work the puff stitches. They're going to be quite tall, so we're going to pull up the loop with this yarn about the height of 2 centimeters, or 3/4 of an inch. Depending on the yarn you're using, you might like to make them a little shorter or even a little longer. Yarn over, place the hook into the magic ring and pull up a loop with nice loose tension. And you want that loop to match the first loop. And then you hold them on your hook with your pointer finger or perhaps with your thumb, whatever suits you. Yarn over number 2, down into the ring, pull up a loop. Give it a little wriggle if you need to. Yarn over number 3, into the ring and pull up a loop. Yarn over number 4, into the ring, pull up a loop. And final yarn over number 5, into the ring and pull up a loop. Now to make this first puff stitch, you're just going to pull through all 11 loops at once. To do that, you want to grasp with your middle finger and your thumb of your yarn tensioning hand. At the base of the stitch, grasping onto the working yarn. As you yarn over and turn your hook head facing down, just so it doesn't catch on these loops as you're pulling it through, all of them at once. Then place your hook down into the space that you are holding open. Grab the yarn and pull up a loop. And then grab the yarn and pull through 2, which is a single crochet. Make sure that single crochet is not too tight because you do need to work back into it. And make a nice tight 2 chains. Now to make our second puff stitch, we yarn over, place our hook down into the magic ring and pull up a loop to the height of the previous puff stitch. Yarn over number 2, place the hook down into the magic ring and pull up a loop. Yarn over number 3, place the hook into the magic ring and pull up a loop. Yarn over number 4, pull up a loop. And yarn over number 5, and you might notice that as I pull up a loop, I'm making the hook even a little bit more exaggerated than parallel, and that helps to keep these loops all nice and even. You don't want them to slowly be getting smaller and smaller and smaller, or you won't have the same sized wraps on your puff stitch and they won't look neat. So then you grasp the working yarn at the base of the stitch between your middle finger and your thumb, if that's comfortable for you. Yarn over, and I like to sometimes, this does help, place my middle finger in the way there and place the hook head facing downwards so that as you're drawing the hook through these loops, it doesn't catch on them. It's more likely to smoothly glide through them. And now we're going to draw the hook through in one motion up until the final loop, because that loop is not quite as large, so it's a little bit more tricky to get it through. If you can get it through all 11 loops in one go, that's fantastic. So let's pull it through and then pull it through that final loop on the hook, just nice and slowly. Then place your hook down through the space you're holding open. Grab the yarn, and then you can give it a little tug, because if you tug on this loop here, it will pull this loop here tighter. So pull up a loop and yarn over and pull through 2 loops on your hook. You don't want that single crochet you've just made to be too loose, but you do want to be able to work back into it. And 2 tight chains. Now I'm going to make a total of 7 puff stitches and 7 lots of 2 chains, and I will see you when I've done that. So now we have 7 lots of puff stitch and a chain 2 space. The next thing we're going to do is just add 1 chain onto that to make this one a chain 3. Then we're going to make a slip stitch into the magic ring, nice and tight, and then another chain 3. Again, these are tight chains. Then we're going to close up the magic ring. So this can be a bit tricky depending on the yarn you've used, and you also don't want to break your yarn, so just give it a gentle tug. Now we're going to work round 2. So we're going to work into the single crochet that we closed the puff stitch with, which is right here. We're going to make a single crochet into that single crochet, and then 3 single crochet into this chain 2 space. 1, 2, and 3. Half double crochet into the next top of the puff stitch, and 2 single crochet into this chain 2 space, and then a single crochet in the top of the next puff stitch, and 2 single crochet into the next chain 2 space. Now we've reached the puff stitch at the bottom of the heart, and we're going to make half double crochet, and half double crochet into that single crochet. So a half double crochet, a double crochet, and a half double crochet to form the point of the heart. Working back up to the top of the heart, 2 single crochet in the chain 2 space, single crochet in the top of the next puff stitch, 2 single crochet in the next chain 2 space, and a half double crochet at the top of the next puff stitch, 3 single crochet in this last chain 2 space, and a single crochet at the top of the next puff stitch. We're going to place a marker in that stitch. So at the top of the heart, we are going to make 3 single crochet into this chain 3 space. 1, 2, and 3, and then a tight slip stitch into the center of the magic ring. And then work 3 single crochet in the next chain 3 space. 1, 2, 3. To work the zigzag edging that I have here, you make a tight slip stitch and a loose chain 1 in each stitch around. We're going to go right around until we reach the double crochet stitch at the bottom of the heart. So that is really important that you do tight slip stitch and then a loose chain 1, and that is about how the size that you want it to be. You can experiment with that, but you will find that it looks more zigzaggy and a bit prettier if you do a loose chain 1. So tight slip stitch and a loose chain 1. You want to keep those slip stitches the same tension and the chain 1s at the same tension also to give that standard look. And now we've reached the double crochet at the bottom of the heart. We're going to make a tight slip stitch, a tight chain 2, and another tight slip stitch into that same stitch, and then a loose chain 1, just to give that tip a little more definition. And then continue on with our same edging until you reach the stitch marker. And I've reached the stitch marker, so you can remove the marker, it's no longer needed, and just make a slip stitch into the marked stitch. Cut your yarn, doesn't need to be a long tail, and fasten off. So just pull up on your hook and pull the loose strand of yarn through the loop. Then you want to thread up your yarn needle and weave in the ends on the reverse. So down through the stitch you just came out of. Just weave through a few stitches. We don't need to be extremely careful with this weaving in, but you still want to do a good job so it looks neat on both sides. And weaving in the second yarn end. Just go around the center of the magic ring a few times and trim close to your work. I hope you've enjoyed creating these puff flower hearts, and I really look forward to seeing your work on social media. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.